Hi, guys. In this episode, we chat with the chief instructor of Lost Legacy Systems in Coconut Creek, Florida. He holds a fourth degree black belt on the founder, Master Jean Phoenix LeGrand, and has been teaching since 2004. He continues his martial study, having acquired knowledge in Wing Chun, Meihua Chuan, JiuJitsu and Judo, to name a few. Our guest is also a certified Acupuncture Physician, Qigong healer, and Doctor of Oriental Medicine, with practices in Boca Raton, Coconut Creek, and Tamarac, Florida. I'm grateful for the time that he's taken out of his very busy schedule to be with us here today. So please welcome Dr. Jonathan M. Field. How are you doing today, sir?
Excellent, Sifu. Thank you for having me, sir. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much for being here. You have no idea how much I appreciate it, sir. So, with time being of the essence, let's go straight into the interview for you, sir. With the first question, how did you start in the martial arts?
Great question. I think I started like many young kids. I just, like to fight, like to wrestle. It was fun. And I was actually born on a farm in Israel, in the middle of nowhere, in a small little village. And I moved to the States when I was 7 years old. I didn't speak any English, and it was, I came from a farming life to the suburbs. So it was a big culture shock. And, being an outsider, being weird, I had to adjust to things like wearing shoes, wearing underwear, like things that we weren't used to on the farm, right? I think kids started to naturally just kind of want to bully me, right? They had their groups of friends when you come to school, and I spoke English funny, and you know how it is, right? When you have an accent. I've managed to lose it now since I came at 7. I was able to get rid of it, and now I think my English is better than my first language. But at the time, you would have to kind of stand up for yourself. You'd have to fight back, and then. I did, I think, a year or two when I was younger, started with karate and taekwondo. And then I got more serious about taekwondo when I was about 11. My folks put me in it, and I did a couple years of that. And then I have 2 younger brothers. And then my father thought that I was being too rough with my brothers, so he pulled me out of it. But I always kept that love for it. And I would always kind of like practice with friends or get in altercations as a kid, probably not the discipline route that you'd want for a martial artist. And then in my early 20s, I was into music and graphic design and stuff like that. And I was working in a recording studio, and I had an office in a recording studio at Reverse Polarity that my buddy DJ Immortal and Mordecai owned. And Master Phoenix LeGrand came in. He's a recording artist as well. And he was doing some recording there, and I was introduced to him, and he told me, "Oh, I have a martial arts program. I have a martial arts school." And I started to try to get a little more information out of him, but he was very humble, and he wasn't really giving it to me. I was asking him what styles, what his experience was, and he was just like, "Just come try it out. Come try it out." And I was like, I'm busy. I don't have time." And then eventually we worked out some kind of barter deal where I was like, "I'm going to do some graphic design for you if you let me try classes." And I was like, I'm going to come once a week. And at the time I was in the gym probably 4 or 5 days a week. I tried one of the classes, and I remember there was a group of kids. They were about 12 or 13. I was probably 24 at the time, maybe 25. And I was struggling. And I was like, I'm in the gym 4 or 5 days a week. I'm like, how is this hard for me? And how are these little kids doing it? And I got hooked. And I went from like, I'm going to do 1 day a week to I was training 6, 7 days a week. About 6 months later, the facility he was at closed down, and we ended up opening a dojo together, a Kun in Margate. And we were there for a couple of years. And then within about a year, I was teaching classes. And then we spent about 7 years in a community center in Coconut Creek. And then we bounced around between a bunch of the big MMA gyms. We worked at some of the biggest MMA gyms. And now I'm kind of, I had 2 kids in the last 3 years, and I'm busy with the medical practices. So I'm not teaching as often, but I'm still hosting retreats and teaching Qigong. And as soon as my boys are a little bit older, I'll get them back into regular practice.
All right. That's awesome. That is absolutely awesome. So, within your martial arts practice, right? You also had time to fit in some Qigong, right?
Yeah, great question. So at the same time I started with with Master Phoenix Legrand, with my Shidoshi, I also met a gentleman by the name of Dr. George Love, who was the one that introduced me into acupuncture and qigong and the healing arts that come along with the Eastern traditions. And he initially came, and I started practicing his qigong system, which is Blue Dragon Qigong. He is it's a smaller family lineage, and he is currently the lineage holder, but it was in a Chinese family for 13 generations. And a Chinese doctor was from a long line of history of doctors. And the two sons did not want to continue carrying on the tradition after 13 generations. So Dr. George Love became the lineage holder about 30 plus years ago. And I started studying with him almost 20 years ago. And I became his top student. I was the first one to get certified as a master instructor in his system. So now I am 15th generation, I guess, of the Blue Dragon system, and it's and there's incorporated bits and pieces of other systems, and there's some of the exercises that you'll see in other systems, but then there's some methodology and certain movements that are kind of unique to that particular system.
Nice, because it's very, I'm not too familiar with the Blue Dragon.
It's not one of the big systems you hear like Badwan Jin or the 5 Animal Frolics or Yi Jin Jing or Shibasha. I know there's the very popular ones, and then there's these smaller family lineages that weren't really taught outside of the family up until recently, up until the last maybe 20, 30 years. So we're trying to keep that torch alive and just spread the benefits. But I think for me personally, the qigong is what opened me up to the acupuncture and even the possibility of things like energy healing and to know there's more out there. Because when I started practicing it with my martial arts, as you can feel the differences that are happening in your body. You could become in tune with that awareness of qi, of energy, and it's profound. It's not something to be taken lightly. If you practice it seriously, the effects and the benefits are very serious as well. And that kind of just blew my mind, how powerful it was. And that made me want to go deeper and deeper into the traditional Chinese medicine and into the martial arts and leave as I got older. That helped me go away from some of the harder Japanese styles and other styles I was doing and go more into the internal arts and focus more on the Chinese martial arts that I think are, at least here in the West, have more of the healing and more respect for the body and more the meditation and the spiritual aspect than maybe some of the other arts from other cultures. Not that they don't traditionally have it, but I think if you look at karate and taekwondo and some of the other, or even jiu-jitsu, you don't see as much. The discipline is there, the athleticism is there, the martial element is there, but you don't see as much, I think, as the spirituality and the healing as you do with the traditional Chinese martial arts, at least in my opinion.
Of course, you have your martial education first, and then you got into your medical field after.
Yes, sir.
All right. So would you say that your martial arts definitely influenced you?
100%. So I mean, my introduction was through the qigong. And then whenever I used to get injured training, because we at one point our club was basically like Fight Club. We would have people come in from other schools and just be like, "We heard you like to fight," and we come on in. We take all challenges, And I did that for. Excuse me. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes. Don't talk about Fight Club.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, rule number 1. Correct. Yeah. All right. You got me there for a second. I thought my mic helped. Okay. But basically after 10 plus years of doing that, and once I got into my early 30s and doing the Japanese jiu-jitsu and the judo, my body couldn't take it anymore. I started to accumulate so many different injuries. And then I went through a period where I got very sick, and Western medicine couldn't help me for the most part. I saw dozens of doctors, and I was disabled for about a year, and I was suffering from hot flashes and chills and fatigue and depression, systemic joint pain, carpal tunnel, tendonitis. My back and neck pain was so bad, I couldn't even sit in a chair. I couldn't work for a year. And I kept going to all these doctors, and they kept telling me, it's all in your head. Here's muscle relaxers and here's pain pills. And I was like, no, thank you. Right. I've seen enough of my friends go down that route. I think with the opioid crisis, we kind of know where that leads. And eventually, a friend of mine by the name of Reed Eckert that I share a space with in Tamarac, he invents vitamins. He's a formulary. And he got me 100% better, made a full recovery. He put me in touch with a good chiropractor. And having lived that experience and having already been studying and interning with Dr. Love and doing the Qigong and being a beneficiary of acupuncture and Chinese medicine, then I kind of knew, like, a light bulb hit me, and I knew it was my calling to be able to completely change my lifestyle and stop working on a computer, which is what I was doing, and go back to school and commit myself to full-time helping other people in my shoes. Like, I figured, listen, I'm in my 30s. I live in America. I have health insurance. Why can't I get help? Why is it so difficult to get medical assistance, with all these issues? And how can it be that doctors are just telling me take these pills and go home and die, which was not a good option for me, right? So I dedicated my life to being able to help other people in similar situations to myself.
Being a medical doctor, right, a doctor of Oriental Medicine, how has that helped you with your teaching career, with martial arts?
Excellent question. And as you know, but some beginners may not, especially in the traditional Chinese martial arts, they're interlinked. You cannot separate the martial from the medicine, because everything from the Dit Dao Jiao to pressure points or Dimok or whatever you want to call it, even to the healing, right? We're using acupuncture points. We're using meridians. We're using qi. We're using intention. We're using our yi, our intention, to guide the qi, right? And that's what's moving, and the qi is moving the blood, right? So it's helped me tremendously, because it's helped me realize, everything from whether we're doing the JiuJitsu or Judo, pressure points and acupuncture, which are basically acupuncture points or trigger points. It's helped me, my knowledge of anatomy has helped portray and convey that to my students, to be able to be more precise. Which muscles, which groups are we attacking? Which ones are we inhibiting? How we can escape or use certain muscle groups to our advantage? Which ones should be relaxed? Which ones should be tight? So I think the more you learn about anatomy, it helps you tremendously with martial arts, obviously. And then from the healing perspective, if you're getting injured training, which at some point there's going to be some injuries involved, if you're training any system that has any sort of realism or sparring or contact to it, even if you're just doing forms, there probably will be some injuries involved at some point, whether it be knees or shoulders or back or something as well. So I think it's been a huge blessing. On top of all that, it gets you an extra layer of credibility, I think, in the space too. Not that I'm overly concerned about that, but I think it's nice to be able to use more anatomical and medical language to portray these conversations better. And I think it makes the students more confident in the material that they're learning and better for them to absorb. So it's I was very lucky to have good mentors and good teachers, and I'm just trying to live up to that and pass it back on to my students.
That point hits really home with me, really does, because I'm a certified personal trainer. Right?
Bingo.
And I also so I teach also in the community centers. I teach my seniors. So it's a whole lot easier for me to be able to use the actual anatomical name, right?
Right.
Because it's more universal. Everybody will understand that. And if you just put a name that you and probably say a couple friends, right? More than just within your circle. So I mean, I definitely understand.
Right. If I'm telling you put some power in your spleen meridian, it's not going to have the same as engage your core, right? It's just easier. Thing. And you as a personal trainer, this better than anything with any sport or any martial art. It's a science. It's body mechanics, right? And that thing is cross not only sport, but even just day to day. Your gait, walking around, doing the dishes. If you don't have good body mechanics, you're going to get injuries. You're going to create dysfunction in your body. So I think that's huge, and it's a huge benefit, like I said, for your students to have somebody with your expertise to be able to correct them. And I think sometimes some teachers or some systems, they kind of bypass all that. They're just like, do this, train like this, do it that way because I said so, or because my teacher said so. And that's the way it is. And it's not a good answer. And it doesn't help you incorporate proper body mechanics in day-to-day life, which is what we want as a real martial artist, to reach a level where your martial arts and your discipline and everything about it and your spirituality carries on to other areas of your life. So you lead by example, right? You can't have good form in Tai Chi, but then you're walking around looking like a hunchback. That doesn't make sense.
That's such a good point. That is such a very good point. Yeah, that's so true. That is so true. All right, doctor, we're going to go into another question.
Yes, sir.
In your honest opinion, as being a martial arts teacher, right? What do you think is the hardest part of one? So, or how should I say? What is the hardest part of developing one?
The hardest part of developing oneself?
One's kung fu.
One's Kung Fu. I honestly, I think it's just the commitment, which we don't see a lot, especially in this culture, right? Traditionally, you'd spend 2-3 years begging a teacher to teach you, right? That's how it was. So you were committed before you were even getting the knowledge. You were committed for years, just trying to get this teacher to open their door to you and accept you as a student. And now that it's kind of like a pay as you go thing, like I could miss class, I could take a month off or a year off, right? And just like if you were playing a musical instrument, if you practice once a week for 2 hours, you're never going to get good. If you practice every day for 20 minutes, it's better than that once a day for 2 hours. I mean, once a week for 2 hours, right? So I think the discipline and the commitment is the hardest part, because, we're not all going to be world champions at anything, but everybody can improve. Everybody can develop skills. Everybody can get better, but without a practice, a commitment to doing it regularly, you're not going to have lasting results. You're not going to have lasting effects for your health and wellness, or you're not going to be able to quantify or measure the actual improvements in your practice if you're kind of just doing it sparingly, like whenever I feel like it.
100%, 100%. Commitment is definitely what you need. If you cannot commit to it, there is no way of you attaining that. Say, I'm sorry to say it, but that fantasy that you have, right?
Right.
Of getting up to the being a grandmaster. And
Yeah.
if you don't commit, there's no way you can get there.
Right.
Understood.
And it doesn't have to be a fantasy, right? If you commit, just about anybody can do it. You just have to commit.
Better said.
Right? At different levels. Right. Bingo.
Yeah. I'm loving it. It's all facts that you're speaking right now, sir. I'm telling you. All right, so we'll go to another question. If you could teach the new generation of martial artists only one thing, either technique or even philosophy, what would it
be? Qigong. And Qigong are probably just eating right and drinking more water. I think those are the most important. I really do, and you know what it is? It's hard for a new generation to understand that, right? And we were all those knuckleheads, right? Like, I love to spar, I love to fight, I love to roll, but I'll be 44 in a couple months, and I don't heal as fast as I used to. I'm not as flexible as I used to be. I have some, various aches and pains. I'll tweak something every now and then. And I think the most important thing that I wish I would have been taught from the beginning is that the internal is more important than the external, right? Not even, I mean, typically yin and yang, so you say equal. The problem is most of us start external, and then later on in life do we only begin to start processing, internal training and things like that. So I think, I've spent time living with the Shaolin monks in China, and every morning, right, and you're training 8 hours a day of Kung Fu, hard Kung Fu, right? Shaolin monks are notorious for their conditioning. It's not, we're not just standing around meditating all day, right? So, but every morning they start off with 30 minutes of meditation, right? Then you would do half an hour of Qigong. Then you would do half an hour of Tai Chi. then you'd have breakfast. Then an hour later, then you'd start your hard Kung Fu training, right? But and the reason they start the day off like that is to protect yourself, to protect your body, to protect your spirit, to protect your mental state, so you can handle 8 hours a day of training, or so you can handle a day of work and not become too stressed out and go home and have a heart attack at 45 or whatever it is. So I think for me, and also the other part of it is, you are working on longevity, you are working on health. Two, nobody's going to get injured doing Qigong for the most part. I mean, I'm sure, yes, you can develop Qigong fire and Qigong mania, right? If you over practice and do the wrong types of practices. I've heard of cases. I've not seen it personally, but I believe it exists. And I know it's an issue, and they have the same thing in Kundalini as well, right? But you're going to have so much more longevity in your practice. And also, once you learn how to use your Yi and your Qi, and you put that into your external practice, you're going to be much more effective, right? I mean, look at right, like Fa Jing, right, and Tai Chi. How do you learn that if you have no awareness of Qi, if you're not using intention or your Yi? So I think these concepts are more important. Not only for that, I think that Qigong is more important, one, because not everybody's going to do hard exercise, right? You got plenty of Tai Chi guys that just want to do their forms or aren't going to do any hard sparring or stuff like that. So I think to work the respiratory system, and a huge problem here, 20% of Americans have mental health issues. So how much mentally more prepared will we be for the day and for business and for our family relationships and business relationships if we spent even 10 minutes outside, breathing fresh air in the sun, doing these meditative visualizations and breath work, right? So I think that would be my starting place, because I think it's wrong to teach people how to fight before you teach them how to heal and how to take care of themselves first, right? And obviously, it's not what young folks coming into martial arts want to hear, right? They want to hear, how do I punch? How do I kick ass, right?
Exactly. I mean, most of the time, young guys, well, I was the same thing when we went to martial arts. As soon as we went to there, we don't want to hear about peace and everything. We just want to go and kick ass.
You want to be able to bang, right? Like, I mean, it's an essential part of life. I think obviously there's people who avoid conflict altogether, but I think it's important. You want to be able to defend yourself and your family, number one. Number two, for me personally, it was always fun. I've really, really enjoyed it. Now not as much, because I don't want to be walking around with my neck in a kink for a week after a sparring session when I go to work. It doesn't look good for my patients if I'm a mess. But it is fun, but there are consequences, and people need to know that, and they need to know that there's more martial arts than martial.
Of course, that's great. There is always more martial arts. That's a great quote. That's a great one. Okay, so we're gonna have one more question for you, Doctor. And how can you be contacted?
Sure. If anybody wants to look me up, just look up at Jonathan M. Fields. That's JONATHAN, M as in Matthew, Fields, FIELDS. You can find me on Facebook or LinkedIn or Instagram. If you just type in Jonathan M. Fields, all one word, I'll come up. You'll find me. You can Google it. You can look at, LinkedIn or Instagram or Facebook. I'll pop right up, and all my clinic info and all my other activities are all listed there. Or lostlegacysystems.com. If you go to lostlegacysystems.com, that's got our martial arts school info.
Contact info for Dr. Jonathan Fields and Lost Legacy Systems will be in the description down below. Also in the description down below will be a link for FeiYue shoes. If you need FeiYue shoes, go ahead and click the link. Get the best prices, the best deals, all at FeiYue shoes. Dr. Fields, I do have to thank you once again for being here with me and spending this. Dropping this knowledge, it was enjoyable. Thank you very much, sir.
Sifa Wynter, thank you very much. I really, really appreciate your time as well. And it's a beautiful thing that you're doing, and I hope you continue it. And I think it's very cool that you're shedding some light and giving different instructors a platform to kind of spread this knowledge. And it should be preserved, and you're doing a great job of it. So my hat off to you,
very much. Thank you. Thank you very much, Doctor. I do hope that we can collaborate again in the future on different topics.
Most definitely.
All right, sir. Have a good day.
Sir. Bye, Jen.